CampHacker, bringing your world into focus.
Hello, Camp Pros, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast. My name is Travis Allison. I run a blog and podcast network about running a great summer camp.
And my name is Gabrielle Rell. I'm one of the camp directors at Camp Oro, and Camp Oro is situated in the Laurentian Mountains.
My name's Joe Richards. I'm the executive director at Pierce Williams Christian Center, which is a United Church of Canada summer camp and retreat facility located in Fingal, Ontario, which is about halfway between Detroit and Toronto.
And my name is Chantal Jackson, and I'm one of the co-executive directors of the Cairn Family of Camps. And we are located in Baysville, Ontario, and we're a Presbyterian church camp.
Fantastic. Well, Chantal, thank you so much for joining us again. It's great to have you back on.
Nope, yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. And so last time you were on, we did a bit of an interview about how you got started in camping and a bit of the camp story of Cairn. Many people know the Cairn name, of course, because that's where Beth and I used to direct, and Chantal was one of our directors when we were there, and she's moved into our role. So for those of you listening and hearing Chantal talk for the first time, you're going to notice that I will only call her Match. Because that's her camp name and that's how I know her best. So Matchy, welcome to it. We're so grateful that you could join us today.
I'm pumped.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
So today we're going to talk about how to teach your staff to talk to parents, how to teach them how to welcome parents on site when they see them or meet them at the bus, etc. How can we get them to understand how best to serve the parents of the kids that come to camp? And just coincidentally, I was listening to a podcast today, and one of the biggest takeaways from that, it was a podcast about customer service. And one of the biggest takeaways from that, the interviewer asked the guy who'd written this book, had asked him, what is the first step towards good customer service? What's the first implementable thing you can do? And I think it so directly relates to this. And the author's answer was, teach them to smile. That the best thing you can do to make anybody on site feel welcome is to have your staff show that they're excited to be at camp. Teach them to smile when they greet people and look them in the eye. And there are lots of other depths of things which I hope to go to in this conversation. But I think that in terms of a first step, having your staff understand the importance of smiling when they're talking to people and developing an open posture, etc., really does make that relationship with parents easier. I think the parents will come into a situation already nervous and will be potentially even anticipating meeting people who are giving off the same vibe that they are, this nervous about this moment. And if your staff are confident and can smile, then it's a good way to get them started on a good relationship with parents. Joe, I wonder if there's stuff that you do with your staff to get them to get comfortable talking with parents and get them better at doing it.
We bring in parents, and we have staff actually meet and talk to parents, and we have parents talk to staff. We have a unique setup. When I arrived 10 years ago, they did family camp first thing in the summer. So before we see any kids, we actually see our family first. And at first, when you're with new staff, that was always a worry for me, because you have untested staff with the most critical group that you're going to see all summer. And what it did is, in fact, over the years, it's really helped us because we can see the parents and we can actually involve some of those parents in our staff training. We talk a lot about smiling and talking and greeting the parents when they drop the kids off, because at our camp, and some camps are different, but at our camp, kids arrive on a Sunday night and with their parents. So their parents will walk them to their cabin, and then on Friday afternoon, the parents will come and pick them up from their cabin. And so our camp counselors see the parents twice during the session, but also some of those parents, if you've ever had a parent of a 7-year-old camper and it's their first day at camp, you know that parent can sometimes stay in the cabin for upwards of an hour as they're dropping that kid off and trying to get them settled and all of those things. So we teach our staff to greet them with a handshake, to look them in the eye, to smile. One of the things I was taught, this was when I first started in full-time camping, I worked for a gentleman who said you have to smile on the phone. And so, Travis, when you just said earlier that, teach them to smile is one of the keys, it's weird when you think about smiling on the phone, but honestly, I still do it to this day. So as soon as I answer the phone, I smile, by the time I get to the end of my introduction, right?
Yep.
And it makes all the difference because you can tell by the tone in your voice what somebody is doing or thinking. So I tend to clear my mind and smile. And we ask our staff to do much the same thing. There can be many things going on in a staff's life, but by teaching them, to smile and focus on the moment, and also talk and actually take notes, right? Like if you, even if a parent is talking to you and they're giving you feedback or hints, if you have a notepad and you just, even if you're not writing down anything the parent says, but you're writing down something, they'll take that as a sign that you care. And so we encourage our staff to write down what parents say if that's the case, and we try to give them a small notebook that can help them with that. But also to talk to staff and to talk to parents, and at the end of the week we ask them to give honest excuse my cough, to give honest feedback to parents when they ask, but don't give any negative feedback. And that can be a fine line between honest feedback and negative feedback. But we've introduced parents into our training sessions so that staff can ask parents questions, right? Why do you send your kid? What are you looking for? All of those things. So it's really helped our staff become better at what they do.
That's awesome. Match, is there something that you teach your staff or things that you work on with them?
Yeah, a lot of the same things. Like we spend time on teaching how to give a proper handshake and how not to. And that's just going back from when we were on staff and you taught us how to have a handshake and whatnot. But one thing that we have adopted into our culture over the last couple of years, we, on our opening day, it happens for us in the afternoon. And so we have greeters that are out already shaking parents' hands or greeting cars at our as they drive in. But something that we've noticed that people really enjoy is having a really secure way to welcome people beyond just saying hi and welcome to camp. We've used the term welcome home to any of our returning campers and our returning parents or returning alumni. People associate so much with the word home and with them feeling at home and at ease when they come to camp. And using that term has been a huge thing for our culture. And so being able to know, who is a returner, and so being able to have like that information in front of you, especially with kids when you're greeting the cars as they come in. But then also to recognize some of your alumni, your most biggest supporters, et cetera, and just taking the time to ask them how they're doing and welcome them home, and having a genuine conversation. Really, people get really nervous, and our young staff get super nervous about chatting with people, and that's one thing that we think is really important, that they just forget the nervousness and they forget the worry or the awkwardness. And it's hard to teach, a 17-year-old not to be awkward, but we just encourage them to be able to just say hi and to have a typical conversation with these people.
That's awesome. That's great. And certainly as an alumni, it feels awesome to have staff who never worked for me say, welcome home. It feels great when you come on site. So it's a great thing that you extend that past the alumni into the parents as well. Mm. Yeah. So Gab, what about Woro? What's Woro's trick for this?
We have the training of the awkward walk. So pretty much anywhere on camp, because our camp is very small, and it's literally from the center of camp. It takes you no more than 7 minutes to get to and the furthest point on camp. So the goal is to avoid the the 7-minute awkward walk. And so we just teach our staff that there's 3 components of conversations that you can do. One is ask, the other share, and then the last one's did you know. So ask about their trip, but make it specific, like any fun food that you guys had on the road, or that's one. And then share, oh, this is when I was 10, I lived in this cabin. And I remember that blah, blah, blah. And then did you know, today we're going to be having pizza at dinner, and then you go back to ask. And so we have people that just play different roles of like the silent families, or the oversharing families, or and they get to practice this walk, and then the other person gives feedback, and it's a fun way it's fun for team building, and it's and kind of all rejoice and talk about it. And the more awkward it is, it's sort of, you rejoice. It's like, it was, but that's the first step, and
right.
It's okay. But I can't help, our executive director started having our staff members carry notebooks about 4 or 5 years ago, much like Joe. And I can't tell you how much feedback we've received from our staff members writing stuff down. And we ask them to write everything down when parents are talking about their child, or if they have questions, they must write it down. And it's been, people really, really notice it. And we of course get information that's great. So I can't help but emphasize that piece as well. The notebook is a really, really good one. So
right.
I like that too.
Yeah. And I like the notebook, pardon me, I like the notebook because it, a lot of what we're describing opening days is pretty similar between the 3 camps that we're talking about. But having seen opening days at other camps, and even drop off at the bus at other camps, or the first day that kids arrive on all the buses for day camp, all of this is still possible if you can teach yourself, teach your staff, and yourself. It's a great skill for directors too, to take a breath and slow down and focus on the person in front of you. And that's hard for me. It's always been hard for me when a day like opening day, there's lots going on. But I've trained myself to take a deep breath and focus on that person. And then I think there's moments that we can do stuff like get the conversation going. And then in the ask part of what Gab's talking about, you can start taking notes at that point. Like, you're responding to what's going on in the conversation in such a way that they know that you're taking it seriously. I think that teens in general, conversation skills are something that you acquire over time. Maybe 15 to 20% of teens would be great at talking to adults, but a lot of them aren't. And that's not a product of this generation. I was the same way. I had to be taught conversational skills by my director at that point, which I love Gab, and I expected that you'd have a good little pattern to teach your stuff. So I appreciate that from Mauro. Another thing, and this is an old Dale Carnegie quote, that the best sound in the world to any human being is the sound of their own name. And so if you can teach staff the tricks to focusing on that person and doing something to help remember their name, then you could use that again, Mr. or Mrs. or Ms., whatever their name is, or the child's names, the brothers and sisters' names. All of those things are an important part of being welcoming, etc. And there are lots of different activities you could do to teach staff how to remember names, and be one of those fun things, I think, to have as a bit of a theme through staff training, that you have 6 different ways that you can remember a person's name for those like myself who have a hard time with that, without repeating and developing your own style on doing that. Right. The other idea that comes up for me is something that one of our past co-hosts, Jen Selke, has talked to me about before, and it's the idea of a social script. And what Mauro's done is given their staff a social script to engage with people. So if you are talking to someone who is of a different stature than you are, social stature than you are, like a parent, then there is, that's why I like Mauro's thing, is here's the model. Here's the social script, because this is not a conversation like you have with your friends where you're comfortable enough you don't really talk to them. You pick up in the middle of ideas. You have to actually begin the process of relationship building, and having the script helps with that, moving that forward.
Yeah, totally. And it allows them to bring their own personality in on it as well. I mean,
Right.
I think as a camp director, sometimes, especially when you're new to being a camp director, sometimes the behavior of our staff, we want them to act a certain way and present themselves in a certain way because it represents your camp. And we do have those goofy staff members, and we do have the perhaps more shy staff members, and you almost like a parent just want them to show their best sides on that first day. And sometimes just looking at them in a caring eye when they're fumbling or when they're being a little awkward, and looking at them with that sort of caring eye, it also reminds parents that these are good people that are just struggling just in this moment, and it's
Right.
cool, and you've got it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have seen directors sort of kind of interrupt and just be like, well, actually what she's trying to say or he's trying to say is. And I think it's kind of like also checking your own nerves a little bit and just being like, it's cool. It's, they're fumbling, they're working through it. But if you give them like a nice, kind smile, even make eye contact with the parent, they're reassured because you know what's going on. And it's totally, it's really okay. It's opening day and we're all doing it together.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And if any of you have a friend who has a speech impediment, you know how frustrated they get when people finish their sentences for them, and you just have to train yourself to just wait. And it's the same sort of thing. Like the staff will get through it, they'll feel better for having done it, and it'll be awesome the next time. You jumping in will be frustrating for them and really more embarrassing than them just trying to work through it on their own.
It doesn't mean that you can't rescue your staff either. I mean, you can send some staff. You can send some staff in there. Just it's better if it's not you. But if you're like 5 o'clock, go. Serious silence is happening over there. Move. Have those people in place. So
Hiding in the bushes.
Yeah. And that staff member will be very grateful, and the family will be very grateful. It's just doing it in a subtle way and yourself trying to be as calm as possible. We put stickers on our staff. They have these stickers that say like "Ask me about," and then ... and it's, how me and my best friend met, or how I learned my second language, or the first time I ever went canoeing and I actually ended up in the water 3 seconds later. So they have those stickers, and so I would say maybe 30% of the time people talk about it, but it sort of just shows everybody's experience, and they are really good talking pieces because usually we try to make them
comfortable,
funny stories, and it's something that they're comfortable talking about, and very easy to do, and just put that on their sleeve or on their chest, and there you go.
That's awesome. So I want to just come back to one thing that you mentioned, which is Gab, the rescue, or being sensitive to when you rescue and when you can't. And another past co-host of ours, Marty Ferguson, at the camp when he was directing, they had a signal for staff when staff were talking to parents and needed help, and where either the parent was they just felt like the parent was asking questions they couldn't really answer, or asking them to take responsibility for something that they just didn't know anything about. They had a signal in those situations where they're standing around with parents, and their signal was any staff who's standing with this, obviously not in front of their face, but with their fingers tented like this just in front of them, it was a signal that they'd like some help, and that another staff person could come over or a director could come over and get involved in the conversation. Sometimes it's as simple as, this parent won't stop talking to me and I need to go get dinner ready. And I need help to get extricated from this. Sometimes it's the hard questions that a director should be answering. But they just had this nice way of signaling, could you please help me out, that didn't let the parents in on what was going on.
I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome. We did something similar when
That's great,
when staff members couldn't remember necessarily like a camper's name, they put their hand behind their back.
Right.
And if they're just having a one-on-one conversation, and if someone could go help them out, they would run over and
that's awesome.
say, "Oh, Jason, what's up?"
That is an amazing idea. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
It was pretty good.
Hand signals, like baseball. Just not too many, because you'll get confused. I was looking at baseball, I'm like, how do you remember what's what?
And what if you get traded and you have a whole different...
Then you have to restart. I don't know.
Yeah,
These are things that go through my mind.
Terrifying.
Both teams have to redo their signs and signals.
That would be one of the reasons why I wouldn't be good at baseball, is because purely for that. Remember the signals.
Just the signals. Okay.
But if we have 2 signals, I think I got it.
Good. Help me remember this camper's name and help me out in this conversation.
Exactly.
Good work.
Another thing is super simple and but has been helpful, and I know that this is obvious, but having like really good orientation of just like the general buildings of your camp, even with like camp staff who have been coming to camp for years, they may have only been on one side of your cabins and they have no idea what the other cabins are called. Right. And so, for example, perhaps maybe a few years ago, a staff member may or may not have taken a parent to 4 wrong cabins. Oh. On the way to the 5th cabin. It's like, oh, welcome to our cabin. And it's like, nope, wrong cabin. And so walking, it was an awesome moment. And luckily it happened with one of our parents who was like a longtime alumni, so it wasn't really any kind of issue. But having like orientation games and like strategically walking through both sides of your sets of cabins and walking through, making sure everyone knows what every cabin is called. And it seems so obvious, but if people are well oriented with the site, then they seem like experts and they don't seem like people who have no idea where their kids are supposed to live.
Right.
Anyway. That's
a great idea. It's really awesome. Yeah. Joe, is there any tricks or strategies that you teach your staff beyond? I mean, first you get them comfortable, but then what are the stuff that you ask them to do when they are face-to-face with parents?
Well, when they're face-to-face, we ask that they engage. And we don't ask that they engage for a long time with parents, right? We ask that they understand that the campers are going to be their main focus. And I think that one of the things that parents watch for is how, and the reason they tend to hang around is how are you going to engage with my child?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so if you put the staff and say, okay, here's some quick things to do with the parents, introduce yourself, answer questions, but then, here's what you can do with the camper, right? And get down on their level. All of those things we talk about how to talk to campers. Right. Parents want to see that you're going to care for their child and that they're leaving their child with someone who's going to be able to do that. And so we have this unique ability, and all of us do at some point, be it at drop off at a bus or be it at the, in the cabin at camp, is how are you going to deal with the child? And that extends not just to the counselor, but to all staff, right? So our staff greet cars when they arrive, and we ask that they greet the parent, but they also recognize the child who's in the car, and when Jessica and myself meet every car with our clipboard, we tend to ask the camper's name, but then we talk to the camper about what they're going to go through in the next little bit with the lights check and with the lines, and then we address the parents afterwards, because I think it's a much more powerful thing for parents to see how we're going to act with kids. This is where family camp is. We often encourage families who don't know if their child's ready for camp, which is code for I'm not ready to send my child to camp.
Yep.
And so when we invite them to family camp, what it allows them to see is how their child is treated by staff members, not just how they're treated by staff members. So there's a little disconnect there, but that's a huge and powerful part of this, is that you not only how to talk to parents, but what parents are looking for. And I think as we've talked with parents over the years about what they're looking for, that's one of the big things. Parents do like talking. Everybody likes talking. But if you can engage your child very early on when they get to your cabin, instead of just, okay, choose a bunk, go to it. We have some staff who have some issues with something we call, I don't know how to say this on a family-friendly podcast, but butt face. People whose faces, for no apparent reason, have no ability to smile. Right. Or that's their normal reaction, is that they have this look of pained right there in a normal, it's not just butt face. But in a normal situation, right? Their face is their face is going to go back to this setting which some people have a smile setting and some people have a butt face setting. And we, with those staff, it's funny because some of our staff understand that they have this problem.
Right.
And
Right.
they have to make a conscious effort for the 2 to 3 hours that we ask them to be in front of parents, that they're, you need to consciously think about smiling all the time. For lots of people, so for my summer camp director, Jessica, that is her natural state of mind. If anybody's ever met her, I don't think she does anything but smile, right? Whereas we have some other staff members, and we brought it up in conversation with some staff, and they said, oh no, so-and-so knows exactly what they're faced. Yeah, it's a challenge for them. And I was like, through life, that could be a challenge for you. But we ask those staff to, and if the staff recognize it, that's awesome. But I think the way you engage with the child is just as in front of the parent is just as important as the way you engage with the parent.
Yes, awesome. Match, is there anything else you can think of that you'd like to add into, or ways to encourage people to get their staff to be welcoming? I think that, quite frankly, of all the directors I've known, you're the best at it that I've ever known, at making people feel welcome at camp. And so I just wonder if there's other things that you pass on to your staff to help out with that.
I think I just encourage people to be genuine, just like what we've already said, and greet people how you want to be greeted. And if you're going to a place for the very first time, especially if you're dropping off your most important possession, treat them how you would want yourself to be treated. And everybody deserves dignity, and everybody deserves integrity, even if they aren't the nicest people or they have a standing butt face. You need to be able to change that mentality, or that I don't know. One of my biggest goals is when I find it as a personal challenge. If someone is seemingly upset, or you can read people incredibly well by just looking at body language, and that's, I think, one thing that I do is I just stop and analyze for a quick second, and you can get a feel if something is off, and then with a little bit of listening and even a little bit of just observation, you're going to be able to go in and help solve an issue or help be a greeter or whatever. But it just takes a bit of time to be able to analyze and reflect what you think is actually going on and what you think these people will need. Right. And also encouraging people to remember that these are clients. Yes, it's camp and everyone has fun and we're all going to hoot and holler and whatever, and be, zany and wonderful camp people. But these people are our clients, and these people expect professionalism, but they also expect genuine people to take care of their people. So I think it just takes time and practice to be able to read people and to be able to understand what they are actually needing through their body language or through what they're actually asking you for.
Great. That's awesome. Thank you. Gab, do you have any final thoughts on this?
I think just teach your staff how to problem solve. I mean, and I mean that in the simplest of terms. I don't actually mean it in a huge way, but I just mean just simple in the sense of if you don't know the answer, write it down in the notebook. It's just say, I'm not quite sure, but I'll find out for you. And then also make sure that your staff know who they can go to. And most of the time, it's not going to be you because you're going to be so busy that day. So who's the person that they go and ask that question to? That's a simple problem solving. Just write it down and say, oh, I'm not quite sure, but I'll find out for you. And give them the 2 people, 3 people that they can go and ask those questions to. And those 2 or 3 people, if they know, they'll be able to gauge if the director should be involved or not in those questions. So just prepare your staff that way. They don't need to know everything. And most likely they won't. And it's cool if they don't. That's it.
And then to never make stuff up.
Right.
To never just answer a question for the sake of answering a question. Oh, this is what it is. And then it never.
Yeah. Don't give a butt face answer it. Don't do it. Just don't do it.
It's my new term.
You guys are making fun of me.
It's happening.
No way.
So I think thank you to the three of you for some great thoughts on this. It's a really important topic, and I think we could actually spend some more time on it. But I want to keep this quite short today on this show because we're heading into the summer and give people something good and punchy to listen to and get some good stuff out of. So thanks for that. It's some really good ideas. We might incorporate a couple of other things into the show notes for this show. So if you go to camphacker.tv/podcast, you can see the show notes there that Matt's putting together for us and doing an awesome job. And I'll include a couple things, including some slides from a presentation that I've been doing with Jack and Laura, who are our partners and faculty on our GoCamp Pro site. And we've been doing on partnering with parents and talks about a lot of these things. And the one I'm going to illustrate is what it is about camp that makes the parents find the hardest or gives them most stress. So if you go to camphacker.tv/podcast, this is episode 81. You will see that information is there. So that means for us, it's time to move on to our tool of the week. So thank you for joining us for this show. Our tool of the week is something that each of our panelists brings to the discussion that makes them a better camp director. And I'd like to start off today with Joe's tool. Joe, what's your tool today?
Today, my tool of the week is a book called The Royal Road to Card Magic. Now, this isn't for everybody. It is a book that I think about a lot, and it's a book that I refer back to. But whenever I pick up a deck of cards, be it to play a game of poker or to do a card trick, it's a book that I'm thankful that I experienced years ago. I bought it at a place in Toronto called the Browser's Den of Magic, which if you've never been, it's an awesome store. And The Royal Road to Card Magic is essentially a book that teaches you how to manipulate cards in a regular deck. So there's no tricks to a trick deck or to counting this or counting that. It's literally how to just manipulate cards. This goes back to it's something we've talked a lot about here at camp recently, me and my summer camp director, about creating magic moments. And one of the things that camp directors and senior staff and people who are in those positions can do is have that unique special skill which sets them apart from everyone else. So be it a song or a tongue twister that they can do and nobody else can, or be it like this, teaching yourself card tricks, which isn't for everybody, but it's a really, really cool way to connect with a camper who you might not connect with, or to show staff or to be able to teach staff another skill that they don't have. So the Royal Road to Card Magic, it is it's fairly inexpensive, under $20, and something you can keep on your shelf for the rest of your life.
Fantastic. And a great one. Thanks, Joe. Cap, what's your tool?
My tool is Slack, and I found out about Slack through Travis, with GoCamp Pro, and I wasn't actually using it when I was in GoCamp Pro. I was like, ugh, more writing. I don't feel like it. And then Travis, you told me, you might actually like this, and your staff might actually like this. And we have two offices, basically. It's a communication system, and it's basically, I think it's kind of a mixture, if you will, between Twitter and texting, that you can include documents. And you create channels, and you can invite people into those groups and chit-chat. And anyways, our team committed to not using email with each other and to try it out for 2 weeks. And it has been amazing. I seriously can't tell you how amazing it's been. It's been fantastic. So I really, really enjoy it. And you can use other organizational tools like Trello and link those into Slack. But I've loved it. And you can go on your phone, Android and iPhone, also on your computer. There's an app for it. So it's pretty, and you guys know that I like things that are pretty. So yeah, I'm really, really loving it. I think it's awesome. And also, as a side note, their video to teach you or just introduce what Slack is a fantastic example of a great information video for your camp, because they use humor. And just see how they use humor if you're looking to do an information video about your camp. That it's a very good example of that. So even if you don't use it, check out their video.
Cool.
All right. That's awesome. Good call, Gab. Thank you. Machi, what's your tool?
My tool is a book called The Hundredth Monkey, sorry, by Nate Folan. I had the pleasure of being able to be in a 2-day workshop at the Leap conference at AdventureWorks this year, and Nate was their keynote speaker. And he ran workshops with us, and all from his new book. And I very quickly went and bought that book. I got it signed. But it's excellent. It's got a really interesting twists on different activities, really fresh new activities that are really great for a range from campers to like senior staff who have been returning to camp for many years. So it's helped press the refresh button for me. For looking at training, et cetera, et cetera.
Fantastic. Great idea. So mine is also a book. It's called Badass Making Users Awesome. And it is the coolest book. It's really simple. Nice. It doesn't have a lot of text. It has lots of diagrams and photos in it. So that makes it nice to learn stuff from.
Kind of book.
And
I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It talks about how you make people appreciate your product, our product being camp, by making them awesome in life, not just awesome at your tool, and ways to do it. And the one example that always sticks out to me from this book, there's lots of good detail things in there, so I recommend you buy it. But one thing that sticks out is the idea that we spend all this time and energy on something that is super pretty and punchy and pretty design and all that stuff when we're marketing to them, and then at the moment that we sell to them, we then email them a PDF, and that's the very moment when we should be doing more of the awesome pretty videos and give them their own website that's special, so that that they continue with this feeling that they're anticipating anyway because you've treated them that way so far. And instead of just emailing them PDF, then you go that. So one of the steps that's in there that I really love. So it's by Kathy Sierra. We'll put the links to all these books in our show notes. You can find all the tools there. We are going to wrap things up today. I'm going to give Joe a chance to let people know how they can get in touch with him.
If you have any questions or follow-up, you can reach me at joe@campisbetter.com. You can check out what Pierce Williams does at campisbetter.com, and you can follow me at yoyojoe, yoyojoe.com. Thanks for having me today, Travis.
Thanks for being on, Joe. It's great to have you back. And Gab?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Gabrielle Rail. Check out where I work at waro.com, and you can also get in touch with me at gabs, G-A-B-Z, at waro.com.
Thanks, Gab. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
So Gab and Joe had to run off for meetings, so we'll say quick goodbyes to them, but I want to make sure that we give people a chance to follow up with you if they want to, Match.
Sure. If you want to get in touch with me or have any questions, my email address is match@ilovecamp.org, or you can just reach us at our website at ilovecamp.org.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. So if you're listening to this, watching it on YouTube, I hope that you click the subscribe button below this video. If you're listening through your computer, you can always get these shows delivered to your phone for free by searching through iTunes to get the CampHacker podcast. You'll also see Camp Code there, Gab's other show on our network. If you appreciated anything you've learned from today, we'd love it if you would just spread the word a little bit. So if you go to camphacker.tv/love, that will put out a tweet already written for you on your Twitter and help get some other camp pros learning some of this information we've shared on reaching out to and having good relationships with parents. Thank you very much for watching and for listening. We really appreciate it. Thanks for the evening, friends.